A Nevada father is concerned about the fact that the schools that his children are going to are collecting data on them, and he wants to know what exactly that data is or are. So John Eppolito is the father in question here, and he says that the schools acknowledge that they're collecting information on his kids, but he doesn't know what that information is. So he did request a report detailing all that they have collected on his children, and they got back to him and said, sure, we can do that. It'll just cost you $10,000. Okay, so there is a law that says that you can't do that. Let me tell you what the law is. According to the Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act, a school is allowed to impose a fee for a copy of an education record requested by a parent or student. There is a catch, though. The fee can only be imposed if it's small enough that it doesn't prevent a parent from obtaining the record. Now, $10,000 is obviously too much money for the record, but the school is saying that what the father is requesting is actually a lot more complicated than others would assume, because they say that they don't have individualized reports. They're saying that they just collect data into a big database, and it's not really connected to one student or another, which I'm not buying. So in order to look through all of that information and kind of specify which information is related to his children, that's going to take a long time. In fact, they're saying that it would take 3 weeks or 120 hours, and that they have to pay someone $84.95 an hour in order to do that work, which of course I'm not buying at all. The thought that any public school would pay any employee that amount of money is laughable, to say the least. But also, as a father, you should have the right to know what kind of information this school is collecting on your own children.
This is the biggest bunch of horse shit I've ever heard in my life. Every line in this story is just absolutely ridiculous. The price that they have to pay to get the information, that they even had the balls to come up with this number, that it's going against the law related to this. And also, just what is the data? That's what, you remember when we were in high school, they always used to say, well, you better watch out, that's going to get on your permanent record.
Yeah.
Remember, was there a permanent record?
Of course there is.
There's a permanent record. Forget,
Yes.
I'm not talking about in this day of digital data. I'm talking about, 15 years ago.
Yeah, they were all on paper back then.
And where is that? There's a permanent record somewhere.
Files at your old high school to see, what you did back
So there's a
in high
file
school.
somewhere in my old high school in Long Island. And somebody go into the basement and, Dave Rubin, he did that.
The short answer to that is yes.
What did you do?
Not much. What did he do? He was playing a lot of Nintendo.
But you make up a great point. What kind of data are they collecting on kids? What are they doing with that data? Is that data then going in? Is the school district selling that data? Is the district compiling that data and doing something with it? What are they doing with it?
I mean, there's obviously a tremendous amount of data. If it would take 3 weeks paying someone per hour, 120 hours, to get the data, there's obviously a lot of info there.
Yeah, I know that some school districts are now using GPS tracking systems to ensure that kids are going to school, that they're not ditching. I mean, the technology has gotten out of hand, and at this point, I don't want school districts keeping track of my kids in that way. I don't want them collecting information on my kids. I don't have kids, but if I ever did, I wouldn't want them doing that. And if they say, hey, you know what, this is our policy and we have to, you have no choice, I should absolutely have the right to know what kind of records you're keeping on my kids.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous that they're coming back at him and saying, hey, give us $10,000. Obviously, they're doing that to discourage him from, stirring the pot or asking any further questions.
Well, they say, that the system that is used to store the data, this is the school district saying, the system used to store the data is not meant to produce individualized reports. So that's why they would have to spend a lot of time and money to program the system to kick out this one little individualized reports. But what they don't say is, why are we using this data?
Right, that's the question. All right, fine. If they can't give you the individualized kid in an hour, maybe that's somehow legit, but why can't you give the categories of things that they're tracking?
They're just getting the kids ready for what's to come with the NSA, right? It's like, hey, this is the world you're living in. Big Brother is watching. We're collecting this information on you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Isn't it funny when you set up that story, everything you said was exactly what the NSA said. It's bulk stuff, and it's not particular to anybody.
It's metadata.
It's too horrible. hard to tell you what we're doing with it. It's
Yeah.
going to cost too much money. So
Well, I guess this
forget
is
it.
a little inspiring that it would cost the government a lot of money to get information about any one of us.
Maybe he should make
The
that.
government pays a lot more than $84.95 an hour. I'm pretty
Yes,
sure,
they do.
for these
Well, and
contractors.
also when we're talking about the internet and digital privacy and the fact that the United States has not regulated the internet like the European Union has. They have much stricter rules in Europe to prevent and protect the individual privacy data, and we don't have that here.
This
And
week, they did this huge thing with Google this week. People can reset their Google searches. If you're a private person and anything
Right.
about you is on Google, you now have a button. I don't know how that works exactly.
No, it's a little more complicated than that. So, a court in Europe basically says that if an individual has any type of negative information about them online that's no longer relevant. So let's say it's an old arrest warrant or if it's old debts that you have already paid off, you can basically petition, you can ask Google to take it down and they have to consider it. But they haven't actually put guidelines in place to indicate what Google has to take down and what Google can keep up. So it's difficult to enforce it because the court in that case was not specific about what can and can't happen.
Right, and we haven't even gotten that far in America, sorry.
Yeah, but no, it still puts us into that position, though, that here we are in America. We're basically just sitting ducks for just being, I keep thinking of the Matrix in this, that you're just sitting there connected to everything and they're just pulling all of your information out and making decisions for you and about you and what, kind of loans you can be offered later on. And I don't see this turning out very well with Nevada collecting this kind of data on students. Where does it go? Where is it housed? What happens to it later? What happens when you leave school? Does this follow you? And can it be put together like with the NSA or with, a big corporate data company that can use it against you in some fashion? I mean, it drives me nuts that we do not have the kind of protections that we deserve to have that they get in the European Union. I mean, this is why we can't have nice things.